we're going to start and we're going to jump straight in. We're going to cover a lot. It's going to be primarily action based or key changes in the market that I think all of us have to factor in. First thing is payment is the market. If I had $10 for every client that has actually had a deal fall apart and under contract cancel because the buyers got cold feet over the payment amount, I'd be taking all of us out to Ruth's Chris for dinner. It is happening at all price points, including luxury. It is happening in all types of markets, right outside Philly to out in Missouri and any places in between and California. So, why do I mention that right now? The reality that of what we've come out of in the last few years, yeah, the payment exists. I'm not saying payments don't exist, but it wasn't the key factor of the discussion. It was what's the list price? What's this house worth to you? And what do you have to offer in order to be the winning bid? Or, like it was more about the sales price and the mortgage amount and what you could qualify for. If you want your future self to thank you, make sure that you reincorporate very specific conversations around what is the monthly payment that you are comfortable with. And frankly, I would go back, who remembers post-recession, we started leading with that in the buyer consultation. What do you want your full monthly payment to be, including insurance, maintenance, your HOA fees, like really looking at everything and telling them what it would cost to own per month and determining that prior to what do you qualify for? Because I have news for you all. Those two numbers are not always the same thing. Okay. So just make sure that is worked in. Affordability is bigger than the mortgage. So what do I mean by that? Again, kind of a continuation of what we just talked about with that monthly payment. Buyers are really starting to feel the full cost of ownership. Now, of course, there's major benefits. I don't need to sell any of you on that. We all know that. But there's so many things they're hit with that the affordability conversation is huge. You are going to find that you're going to have some buyers that will either choose to rent longer while they build up more of a down payment. You also may have buyers that are going to underbuy. So you know that a lot of times when people are going through that initial cost of acquisition, oftentimes they will kind of max out. They will buy the top of what they qualify for, feeling they'll grow into the house. We are seeing a shift away from that. We are seeing a shift where you may have buyers that qualify for 650,000, but because of affordability in life, they only want to spend 450,000. So this has to be a very serious, more in-depth conversation because this is also going to impact both offers and what properties you actually show them. So really make sure if you work with buyers that you are taking a fresh look at this. If you have a team with buyers agents, I would even say to go so far as you need to get an hour on the calendar within the next week so you can deep dive on, okay, guys, we're shaking up the consultation. First conversation, monthly payment. Second conversation, all of the costs associated with owning a house. Third conversation, let's get you pre-approved for a mortgage that will give you the payment you desire and let the lender pick it up from there. I would also recommend you have a conversation with your lender and let them know that you're concerned about this and that you want to make sure that this is addressed upfront before an offer is even made and that this is your expectation is that they're not just pre-approving people for the most they can spend. They are pre-approving people for what they want to spend on a monthly basis. Inventory is improving, but it is not equal everywhere. Obviously, we know that. Everyone here, I know you know that. But just looking at some big data. By the way, everything I'm giving you right now, this is from multiple big data sources, all the usual players involved. But it's all from, this is not Bridget's fantasy land. This is some research done on what's happened so far in 2026. So, pending home sales did rise in May. They rose 3.8 and were up 4.8% year over year. The four key regions that the country is broken up into are all showing some gains, but supply is really uneven. I would bet that if I just opened this up and said, who would say that your inventory is patchy, all of you would raise your hand. So some areas still have limited inventory. I see Boston's in the house. So there's still some markets where, especially single family home or multifamily outside of condos and co-ops is still somewhat limited, but you just have to remember this is a time where you need to be on top of your market and what's happening with inventory in the different price points, types of properties, and are you in an area with builder competition or not so much builder competition? but you really have to be the market expert. Kat, can you remind me to make sure that we have an updated version of the market data tracker and that we give that to anyone who attends this or requests it? So I would say that if you're not currently doing what I'm about to say, you need to start doing it this week, not even waiting till next week. You want to start doing your own tracking, using your MLS data to really become that market expert. And we have a very simple form that you can use that will help you do that in a very time efficient manner. In something somewhat noteworthy, the South and actually the West is starting to have some more choices. There's still price sensitivity and more builders are getting back in the game. So you've got to know your local inventory story. One other thing, if you do start checking in on the local inventory every week, make sure you let people know you're doing that. So you want to share that story, make sure it's in social media, make sure you have something of this in your newsletters or your emails. You will find that as you study it regularly, it will start seeping out in conversation when people ask you, how's the market? It's going to start, you'll sound like the area expert. Then another just one point on that before we leave it in terms of inventory, we are really in a situation where almost all price points and types of properties need aggressive pricing and fantastic presentation. And then in terms of the buyer side, I really think that there needs to be more conversation around offer strategy. Because again, if I asked all of you, even though the market is shifting, how many of you have heard about a listing went up and there were 7 offers and it went over list? Who's still having that happen? Good properties with aggressive pricing and amazing condition are still getting multiple offers. So there needs to be a renewed interest and a refreshing of the conversation around what makes a strong offer in your area today. So I mentioned it briefly. Here's the thing. There is a surge in builders going back to some areas where a lot of times you might be sitting there saying, oh, we don't have any building going on in our area. Make sure you don't just assume that. Make sure you look and see what's happening. And sometimes the builder competition can be sneaky. Sometimes the builder competition, if you're in an urban area, it is that as some builders have decided to do smart growth and they're acquiring teardowns, and then they're going to start popping up new construction even within a city. So just, I don't want anyone to think that you're immune to what's happening with builders. And I'm sure some of you here can attest, they're getting pretty strong again with incentives and they are really going after buyer business. So it is in some markets, it is really changing the game. So the builders are still, I don't want to say struggling. However, they did, just to give you some home building nuggets that you can share. Single family home building, it fell to an 8-month low this past May. The overall housing starts dropped to a 6-year low. So you may feel, well, then why are they competition? Because what do people do? What do industries do when they hit new lows? They do everything in their power to bounce back. So they are going to figure it out and they are showing up already. I have heard it at all price points. Actually, if you guys want to know a surprise, and if you have 20 minutes on a Saturday morning, look and see what's happening in some areas with manufactured home developers, because that might surprise you. So even lower price points, builders are getting creative and they're starting to scramble. So make sure you're aware of that. As an agent, you really need to know builder inventory, the incentives in their market, and you want to make connections and relationships. If you are in a market that has some new home subdivisions, I think it is in your best interest to get in there, meet people, and know exactly, get their stance on how they feel about agents and cooperating and just the value of what they offer. So the next thing, pricing fantasy is expensive. Does anyone know what I mean by that? Buyers are out there.
Yes.
They are buying, but they are not being careless. Buyers, for the most part, and I know I'm going to speak in a broad brush, most buyers are operating as if they're in a buyer's market and they're in the driver's seat, regardless of what the actual inventory is in your area. There are still the sporadic ones. I get it. I'm not saying there's not. There's still that like unicorn property and you get, multiple offers. And by the way, some of you are in markets where there's like a price point or a strata or a type of property that is still really hot. But for the most part, buyers are not behaving as if it is a seller's market. They're not even behaving as if it's a neutral market. Most of them are behaving as if it's a buyer's market. So then we've got sellers, and most sellers are still thinking, I mean, if you've got a seller and they're thinking about, well, when you did that evaluation for us in 2021, and that's the memory that they're coming from, you have to sharpen your skills in having the conversations with sellers to make sure that they don't cost themselves even more money chasing the market down, hanging on to a memory or a fantasy. And when I say pricing fantasy is expensive, it costs your clients money. It also costs you money. An interesting activity that I want to do in the next group call is for you to actually calculate how much money you spend whenever you launch a listing. So when you take a listing, you do know that you have expenses. You have overhead expenses. You have some marketing expenses. So there's expenses involved, and there's also time involved. So it's expensive not just for you though. It's also expensive for the client. And those overpriced listings that sit and they don't want to reduce, and I'm not going lower than this. We have got to re-hone our skills on truly digging in on the motivation of the sellers to make sure that under our guidance, we don't allow them to sabotage themselves. So that is something that I really believe we've got to dive in on. I think it's a great time to really reevaluate your entire listing launched strategy. So think about pricing, think about in terms if there's a difference between what you believe it will sell for and what the seller wants to list for, having your own personal professional boundary of how much elasticity do you have in that percentage and deciding what it is and then sticking with that, meaning you may walk away from some listing opportunities and really looking at your launch strategy in terms of conditions, photo, presentation, description, all of it. We are no longer in the market where you put up a coming soon listing and you already have your phone ringing off the hook from agents that are desperate to get in there before it goes live. If you do have that happen, great, but you don't want to build your business on that. So I just wanted us to take a minute to go through those items first before we even get into what to do. Okay. Any questions or anyone disagree that those are factors that we're facing right now? And one other quick thought, which we'll talk about it more later, but one other quick thought, because I am looking at Shirley and Cindy and Jay and a few of you that are in Rhonda, you're in areas that are not necessarily like Overland Park, Kansas, where there's subdivision after subdivision. But again, I would not assume that there's not any new construction. And I think in terms of a marketing piece and a conversation, if you're in a city, is to actually find out what's available and then talk about it because it's a creative point and you may get some people to raise their hand that are currently staying hidden in your database. Okay. So let's go in. I wanted to start off with a little poll. So I wanted to still address because I do want to cover a lot in our time together. And if there is a particular need, I want to make sure that I spend more time there and less on others. So I just popped a poll up. And if you could go ahead and give a quick answer on that, follow your gut, whatever your gut feeling is. And while you guys are answering that, I'll say my usual welcome. Welcome. Make sure you put your area after your name. It looks like most of you have done that already. And also blow up the chat. Make sure you're connecting with each other in the chat. I am going to ask one question too. Everyone answer. Gonna share this. So looking at this, where is the need? What's the strongest reset needed right now? And very clearly listings. Y'all know I'm pretty excited about that. Okay, good. Buyer conversations, so critical, and we're gonna talk about that. Follow-up is huge. I'm certain all of you have business in front of you in your database and in your pipeline that just needs that little bit of miracle grow, a little bit of watering, maybe a pruning, and it would just blossom. So I do feel like each of you has business right in front of you that we need to cultivate. And then a few of you confidence. And for me, the confidence really ties in with mindset. So good. We're going to cover all of this. The cool thing is, sounds like you guys are pretty good on schedule. So we're not going to spend a lot of time today going into schedule. I still have some information in here. It'll be in the slides, it'll be in the workbook, but we don't need to necessarily spend a lot of time talking about it. Okay. All right. So let's jump in. Also, feel free to be pretty interactive. Like I said, put something in the chat or just unmute, raise your hand. You'll know how to raise your hand. When you raise your hand using the little feature in Zoom, you pop up right in front of me. So if you have a question or something to offer, please take advantage of that. All right, we can jump in. We're going to go straight into how do we make the rest of 2026 stronger than the first half? Who would say that you would like for the last half, you would like to sell more, close more, and feel as if you're achieving more in the last half of 2026 than the first half? We have some yeses, some
1,000%.
hands. Great. Okay. That is Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
Johnny Cash. The blur on Zoom makes it not show up as well as the clear background in Riverside. All right, so we're jumping in. And again, if it's okay with you guys, I want to cover a lot in a short time frame. Is it okay if I talk fast and we just go through stuff? Yep,
Go
thumbs
for it.
up on that. Okay, great. Remember, it's being recorded. We are giving you the slides. We have a workbook with more information that you're getting. You can print it out. You can do whatever. And so we're going to just really, really crank into this. And my goal is I want each of you to leave with a clear plan to create more listing conversations, stronger buyer strategy, and better weekly execution. Just, I want each of you, in my dream world, you all would come into your work week knowing what you're doing each day, or knowing, when you're on and when you're off, and knowing the purpose and intentionality of what you're doing. I think that helps to avoid burnout, and it allows you to achieve more with more efficiency. All right. So we are going to get clarity. We are going to know what is your current gap. We're going to find where's the opportunity. And we are going to talk specifically around conversations, which I already started a little bit in the first one, and following a weekly plan. So that's what I have in mind. Does this sound good to everyone? Give me a quick thumbs up or a yay in the chat, or okay,
Yes.
cool. So this is something that was taught to me from one of my coaches, actually somewhat recently. And it's think about having your own operating system as you approach work. And she just calls it the 3 C's. And it's your calendar, your CRM, and consistent communication, which is 4 C's. But she calls it 3 C's. So really challenge yourself and make this the summer, where when you time block and put something on your calendar, you're actually going to follow it 85% of the time. I'd even take 80. 80 is a solid, what's that, a B student? 81%. How about this? So if you time block that you are going to do lead follow-up Thursdays at 11:30, 81% of the time, follow that. Use the timer and do it in the time you have allotted. And if there's more work that would fill the space, that you reschedule another time where you can achieve it. Give me again. A lot of this you can blow up in the chat if you want to put yes in the chat or do a reaction. Even if you all left today and you're like, okay, I'm going to honor my calendar, I'm going to time block it, and I'm going to follow it 81% of the time. Would your business look different? If you got off track, let's say it's a Tuesday and you got to the office late and traffic was weird, then you ran into someone that you know and you like, but they always talk too much when you were getting your coffee as a treat because you were late, and then you get in the office. Instead of belaboring it and being like, well, I guess today's thrown off. What if you stopped yourself and said, hold on, what time is it? It's 11:22. I'm supposed to be finishing up lead follow-up. Let me start. And you just started. What if for this summer, if you ever found yourself off course with your calendar, if you literally did what I just said, look at your watch. If you wear a watch, look at your phone, then look at the calendar and say, I'm supposed to be doing some social media marketing on our current listings. And even don't say to yourself, there's only 8 minutes left before my next. Just start and just do it for 8 minutes. Again, I ask you all, would that make a difference in your business if you did that? Yes, no, maybe. And by the way, notice I didn't say, look and see it's 11:22 and that was supposed to be 30 minutes of lead follow-up. So I start the 30 minutes and then that sets the whole day up. No, just figure out what you're supposed to be doing in that minute. Train yourself and affirm that you follow your schedule 81% of the time. When I'm off track, I just do what I'm supposed to do and honor the time block that was put in place. So I am going to leave that out there. I want you to digest it. I want you to think about it. I also want you to think about doing this as a quest. So literally doing it from our time together today or when you're listening to this recording, and doing it every week that you work and every weekday you work between now and Labor Day. And just tell yourself, this is an experiment that I am doing between now and Labor Day. Jay?
I got to run to a doctor's appointment, but I just wanted to share. I've always loved this idea of an integrity audit. And what's interesting is that the word integrity, we attach this morality to it, like right and wrong. And that is not what the word means at all. The word just means whole. So basically, you start the day with whatever the big rocks are, but you're like, today I'm going to do the following things. And then at the end of the day, you give yourself an integrity audit, meaning like I said I was going to do those three key things and I did them. The rest of the day was craziness, but like I got those things done.
Got those 3 things done.
So I love that bit. Like nothing's wrong. It's either whole or it's not whole. And that's what it is. The other thing I sort of always liked is this idea, and I don't know where the chicken or the egg is here, but it's sort of like your identity tied into your behaviors, and your behaviors are sort of on the foundation of your habits. But I've always found when my motivation or willpower is lacking, I'll say something in the range of, I'm the kind of person who.
That's right. That's right.
and then just like say the verb. And then it's like, I'm the kind of person who like, gives my wife attention or shows up to
Yep.
an appointment on time or coaches soccer or whatever it is. Right. And it just,
Yes.
I don't know. There's just something like backbone reaffirming about like, hey, get over the inertia and just like take a step forward.
And that ties in perfectly, Jay, and that's straight from Atomic Habits. They go into depth on that if any of you are kind of curious around it. And it's a different version of an affirmation. It's that I am statement. So just like Jay said, so let's say you find yourself again, crazy morning, and you just say to yourself, I am the kind of person I follow my schedule. And you just look at it, you do it, and you start. And tying in also with what Jay said, let's say there is only 8 minutes left in your lead generation time block. Honor that, reschedule what you missed if it's later that day. But still, the fastest path to success is to just get back onto what you had lined out as long as you put thought and strategy into your time blocking. So I think it's really good. Yeah, I am the kind of person who, yep, I'm the kind of person who puts their clothes away before they go to bed. That's
Hey,
one of
Bridget.
mine.
Hey,
Yes.
Bridget. Jason Avila. I'm sorry, my phone started to ring. In the chat, Bill said, what would 75 or 65 or 55 do? And I think he might mean in lieu of 81, but I'm not sure.
No, what I'm saying is most of us are probably not putting in those numbers. You need to know me. I'm very sarcastic. Okay. And, sarcasm comes from negative places. Yeah. What I'm saying is most agents don't even show up 55%.
Right.
What
Yeah.
would happen if we showed up at 87? You
Yeah.
guys would be, my background would be Tahiti right now. Okay. Instead of, what my background is. Does that make sense? So, again, Bridget knows me and she knows I'm sarcastic and say crazy stuff, but I'm not saying that we do 55%. What am I saying we need to be doing?
And Bridget,
Eh,
that leads me to when I saw that comment. If you only have 8 minutes left, what if you just shifted your whole day, if possible, by the additional 22 minutes? But then
I'm so glad you said that. So glad you
well,
said that.
then you're going to use that as a crutch all the time. And that would be a
Okay.
negative.
All right. Okay. Perfect. Perfection. Everyone thank Rhonda and Bill. So one of the traps is so we have a safety net filled in there. If you're going to follow your schedule accurately 81% of the time, then it cannot become that crutch of I'll just always be late whenever it's lead gen and whenever it's lead follow up and get there when there's only a few minutes left, because then you wouldn't be hitting the 81, right? That would be a big fail. But one of the traps I myself have fallen into, many of my clients have fallen into, is we build these beautiful calendars. We really think it through. We add logistics, time in the road, where we live, our family, our habits. We factor it all in and we make this schedule. And then it's beautiful. It's color coded. And then we never look at it again and we never ever follow it. Like if I came and followed you around for a week and made notes on everything you were doing, and then I compared that to your calendar, how closely would it match? Right. So, Rhonda, what I'm trying to say is if you want to start following your schedule, there is more power in the minute you realize you have fallen off the horse, you get right back on the horse and you finish that predetermined ride. Then you get the horse put away. And if you're going to take that horse back out later, you take it back out later. So, because it will become a crutch to always be late, always pushing it back. And usually, when you do a pushback on the whole calendar, something gets taken off and it's never replaced. And I have news for all of you. The thing that usually gets pushed off is lead generation. The second thing that is usually pushed off is current client communication. Okay, so we don't want either of those, right? To ever be. So it's I get what you're saying, Rhonda. It can sound counterintuitive, but if you want to develop that skill of I follow the strategized, well thought out, great time blocking schedule, I follow that 81% of the time, you're going to hit that number if you just get back into whatever you're supposed to be doing right in that moment, finish it, and then honor the calendar. And then, and let's be real here for a minute. Honesty with yourself is critical. So if this will work, Rhonda, if you are honest with yourself. And if you do take on that, if you must erase, you must replace. Let's stay in the Tuesday morning for a minute. There was Tuesday morning lead generation. And that example I gave of it's 11:22 when you snap out of it and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm complete. Let me get on. That lead generation, what's the rule from Gary Keller? If you erase, you must replace. So you've already got to move that. So maybe you finish that 8 minutes of lead generation, you do your 3-minute timed break, and then is there a flex time there where you prioritize the lead generation? Like, so you can still prioritize, but to get good at following your calendar, you actually have to follow your calendar almost every day and allow it to be powerful. And if you find that important things aren't happening, then you reevaluate the entire time block. So did that answer that clearly?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Okay. And if anyone is out there saying like, oh, good Lord, she is a math nerd and she's talking about percentages, blah, blah, blah. Okay. 81%. Let's make it easy. You need to be following almost all of your time block calendar 4 days a week. So if you need a quick gauge because you're not like math nerd, that's a quick gauge for you. Okay. And then being really honest with it. And here's one last thing. If you attempt it for 3 weeks and it keeps not working, it is okay to change the schedule as long as the income producing activity is not what you take out or move or like do something that hurts yourself. Okay. The CRM, all of you, you've got to have a CRM. I am not here to tell you to change one. What I'm going to say right now is whatever CRM you have right now, use it. Bloom in it. Bloom where you're planted. What do I mean by that? People have to be captured. They have to be categorized. You need to add in the nuanced information you have. And what I would say is a challenge for you to measure for this summer. You should be in your CRM longer than you're in your email and longer than you're in social media. Can anyone here say that right now? Is anyone living in their CRM? I'm not a gambling woman, but I would say probably, right? So, and let me ask the question again. And I want you guys to either chat or thumbs up or do a reaction. Would you have more business if you actually spent more time in your CRM and used the functionality it has? I don't care which one it is. I don't care which one you have. They're all at a point now, I'm including command, where if you went in and did your task list every day and actually, if you actually set aside Thursday afternoons at 1:00 for half an hour to go in and add nuances of things that you learned from social media or phone calls that you had in that week with VIP, past clients, and referral partners, you would start to develop a really great CRM, right? So be in the CRM. We're also lucky to be selling real estate at this time. Did the market have massive challenges? Yes. Are we necessarily thrilled with the interest rates or the Federal Reserve? No. So like I get that. However, we have tools with AI. We have CRMs that actually can assist us in getting to know our clients better and having increased, which comes to the last C, the consistent communication. The relationships in your CRM must hear from you regularly. Does anyone have any idea what the current number is in terms of touches to have a solid return on your database? Who wants to make a guess? And there's a couple of right answers, by the way, so it's safe to guess because it depends on which source you go to.
I'll just say a lot.
All right, we've got a lot. We've got 36 in the chat. Anyone else want to throw a guess out there? Depending on the source, it's anywhere. Cindy coming in right at the last minute, and you would be the winner on the Price is Right because I was literally about to say it's between 56 and 70. And Cindy popped in the chat 66 right before I said that. I think she just won the Showcase Showdown. And you're within 100, so you get both of the. I'm showing my age there. Okay, so is that number higher than most of you thought?
Is that a year?
That's a year. Yes. Which, how many weeks are in the year?
56.
I need Karen's calendar because I need those
Oh, I
extra
mean
weeks.
50.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. 52, right? So my point with that is, guys, you need a variety of touches. And you have to have the variety of touches. We're in a world now where it is voice to voice, it's digital two-way, it is social media, it's email, it's regular mail, it's in person. Like there's all these different types of touches that all usually involve either an investment of time and energy or time, energy, and money or leverage and money, right? So it is, but that is the reality you're facing. What could you expect if you have this touch campaign going? That is where you can expect between an 8 and 12% return on any given database. So it's very significant. Of course, we want it, right? But the problem is if you're not having a broad enough variety of types of touches, because we don't know who responds to what. We like to think we do. We like to think, with Bridget, she's crazy, so I'm going to text her, because of her schedule. Katie loves phone calls, and she loves them in the afternoon after lunch. Like, is anyone now? Maybe your CRM could keep up with that with some AI enhancement, but the fastest, the most effective way is consistently communicating in a variety of methods and being less attached from. If I send out an email every week plus a monthly newsletter, people will unsubscribe. Get over it. Like it is more important to have that plan. Now, we are not going to go into the 100% like how you could plan out that entire year. I would say that for each of you here, a very easy place to start here would be to look at every single week of the year from today through next June and figure out what is a touch that could happen every single week of the year. And I would start with your VIP group, which would be past clients, orphan past clients, vendors, sphere of influence, and past referral partners. So if you just want to start, because does that sound overwhelming? Who thinks it sounds overwhelming? Okay. So if you do this, then it could help you break down like, well, okay, maybe that's not that overwhelming. If I send out a property of the week every Tuesday at noon for my time zone, except for Hawaii, you want it to be for Pacific Coast time zone. That's 52 right there. And in some years, it's 53. Some years have 53 Tuesdays, right? So, but here's the deal. And why I brought that up. It cannot just be one source. You cannot send 70 emails and just think that's going to be enough to get the engagement because everyone responds to different things. So I just want you to play around with that conceptually, starting off with your VIP group. I want to give the ironclad. These are still the foundation. And this is tested from people at Keller Williams, people at Real, people at EXP. I even think NAR has thrown their hat in the chat. This is the gold standard if someone has earned a right to be in your database. 4 phone call attempts per year. Who can answer? What do I consider to be a phone call attempt for a quarterly call? Anyone know? Now we switch to Jeopardy. This is the final Jeopardy question. And the song's playing.
Repeat the question.
3 dials. Cindy is the game show champion today. Correct. In my opinion, so I know that there's other coaches that might disagree. When you're attempting to talk to everyone in your database 4 times a year, you dial their number 3 times. You do not leave a voicemail unless you know for a fact they're a silent generation or the older half of boomers. And then a quick text if they don't answer, then you mark that as you attempted to talk to them that quarter. Now that works especially for old dead leads or people that you don't know, you're unmet. When it comes to the cream of the crop, you take it one step further. If it's a past client or a referral partner or a VIP sphere, part of your top 20 of your sphere, then you want to go that extra step of a note card or stopping by where you know you might see them, or if it's someone you know from church and they go to a different mass, go to mass that next weekend, the one they go to. Like, you go out of your way with that ultimate top 20 group to make sure that you are having the 2-way conversation. Okay. So play with that. I've got more classes coming up where we're going to dive. The entire class is going to be all about how do we have touches that are meaningful? How can you implement it? Does that mean you can't ever take a vacation? Like, how do you use scheduling for posts and things like that? But just remember, if it is email, you only want to give it about half credit. If it is social media, you only want to give it around 40% credit, unless you have very, very, very high engagement rates with your entire group and a large group, right? So just make sure that you're discounting those a little bit, because the people that don't engage with either are not going to see any of it. And the algorithm is sometimes working against you. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next. But anyone disagree? I'll say one other quick thing about the communication. Who wants to sell more houses? Either raise your hand or do a reaction or put something in the chat. Be prepared. Are y'all prepared? Talk to more people more often every day. I know that's not sexy or exciting, but ultimately that is still the name of the game. And as we have the rising competitor of AI, online things getting easier, other competition, the more you put the human in the relationship and your personality and that warmth, the humanity in it, you're going to navigate and you're gonna thread this needle as we go through it. But you have to talk to more people every day. Okay. All right. Isn't this Kat, for any questions on that before we get into really identifying the gap? Okay. So then we're going to the second poll. As I mentioned earlier in this call, I absolutely fully believe there is more business right in front of each and every single one of you on the screen. With the advances in AI technology, I even think that holds true for any note takers that are in here. The note taker has more business in front of it that it can't see. So where do you think business might be hiding in front of you right now? Okay. Anyone else left? Hey, let me share the results. I'm surprised on this. Okay, so we've got in the lead hidden sellers, the people that you either know or don't know that are likely to sell, people that may have life changes coming up that they haven't made public yet, right? So, and I'm assuming that you're thinking that most of them are probably in your database, but some of them might be in your neighborhood or, your pickleball league. Yeah, they might be in your wine group. Yeah, so it could be yeah, there could be hidden sellers right in front of you. Buyers who need strategy. I don't think I go into victimhood very often. Can we have 3 seconds where I get to be the victim? If I hear one more time from another client, well, these buyers, they want to find the perfect property before they sell, and then they want to buy and they want to get that dream house. Yeah, right. So buyers need strategy. So I'm glad that one of you is acknowledging that because oftentimes we have buyers that want to sell, right? Who's been selling longer than 15 years? Quick show of hands or in the chat. So those are, do you guys remember like back in the day? And this is going to shock some of the newer people. Sellers never thought about going to buy the next house before they sold their current house or got it on the market. They didn't even think about it unless they were ultra wealthy. The only people that did that was the super wealthy. And they'd be like, yeah, we're just going to buy that and keep this, and then we'll move out and then we'll do whatever. But that is not something happened in the last, I don't know, 8 years where consumers started thinking they shifted it. They shifted my buying is more important than selling my current house. And I don't care if I'm contingent. And that means I'm going to keep missing out on stuff. And then COVID came along and reinforced that belief because what did we hear all the way through COVID? What did you guys hear over and over and over from people that wanted to move and had a house to sell? They would say, but what am I going to buy? Where am I going to move? Right. So that just reinforced it. So we have a new consumer behavior pattern. It's relatively new. I mean, it's been around now for a while, but when you think about our current real estate industry really started in the 70s, we're kind of still living out what was started in the 70s in terms of representation and how it's all working. To only be the last 8 to 10 years, that's not that long in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, buyers needing strategy, and you think there's some in the referral partners, 100. And I do believe that a lot of our referral partners are hungry for the connection. So that's an area that we could develop. And old leads I ignored. I'm glad 2 of you put that on there. I don't know if you want to volunteer who said that, but yeah, almost all of you have some old dead leads in your database that with just a little bit of attention are probably ready to do something. Do you guys know why I said that? What's the power in the old dead leads right now? How many of you got internet leads in 2023? Anyone? Okay. Are there some of them that never engaged and never clicked on anything and never took your phone call if you called them? And maybe did you try calling them like maybe 3 quarters and then never called again until the following Christmas? Because they weren't answering. The gestation period for online leads, if they don't buy in the first 3 months, is about 36 months. So guess what's happening right now?
People that weren't buying are buying.
Yes, there you go. Yeah,
I've
so
been
it's
ready.
right. So they are in there. In fact, if were any of you on the 15th protocol call, because Kareen, we actually talked about it there. So those of you that have coached with me for a long time, one of the activities I recommend every December is either that last week of the year that you work or the week between Christmas and New Year's, if you work that week, that you call every dormant dead lead. I call it Lazarus week that is in your entire database, and you dial them 3 times. And if they answer, you just say, hey, I was getting ready for the new year, and you and I were talking about real estate opportunities in Waco. Is now a good time? Is the new year the time to start? And you just see how many of those dead leads you can bring back to life. Why I call it Lazarus Week, right? I'm telling you all, there's indicators in the market that you don't need to wait till Christmas. I would make it Christmas in July by doing those calls with extreme intentionality at a very high level for the next 2 weeks. If you have leads in your database where it's, just get on the phone and call them. And that is the script can be that simple. And we have some scripting options coming up, but it is that simple. It is, hey, Katie, you and I were talking about real estate opportunities in Nashville a while ago. Is it a good time to get started? now? Just ask. So notice, did I try to hyper analyze it and look in my notes? Did she want to buy or did she want to sell? Let me pull up the public records and search her name to see if she. No, none of that. None. No, nah, yet. You just literally call it. We were discussing real estate opportunities in Asheville. Are you ready to get into action? And guess what? What are a bunch of them going to say? No, I'm still not ready and still trying to get my promotion. Ah, yes, I knew, Katie. I know. I know these things. Yeah, and what else? What will some of them say that might sting a little bit?
We already bought or sold.
That's right. Yeah, I remember talking to you. Guess what? We just bought a horse property. It's so cool. It's right outside town. And what are you going to say? And I'm bringing this up for a reason because it's probably going to happen. Just be prepared for it, right? What is your response when they say that? Yeah, we got this horse property and it's actually 16 acres and blah. What are you going to say?
I always say, like, congratulate Cindy. I say congratulations. And then, like, if you need a vendor or a lawn maintenance guy or whatever, happy to connect you with someone great.
Bingo. That is exactly right. And it's why we went into detail on that. So if you get that disappointing news and they have already purchased or they already sold, you congratulate them and then ask how it's going. Why are we doing that?
What if they hate it? What if they have a friend who wants to buy or sell?
Exactly right. And what if they have a need? You can give a referral to your vendor. But what are our colleagues, our real estate industry? What is one of the biggest failings of real estate agents after closing?
Follow up.
That's right. There is a past client follow up is practically non existent. So when you look at big data, and Gary analyzes the bejesus out of this, Gary Keller. But if you look at big data, there's only around 18 to 22% of real estate agents that do any follow up ever with their past clients. So what's the chance that that buyer's agent that represented them in getting the horse farm is going to have strong follow-up with them? Odds are they're not.
Slim to none.
Slim to none. So let's stick with that example. Katie calls them. Oh my goodness, I remember you. Oh yeah, you were in the Air Force, right? Oh my gosh. Yeah, and you had the beautiful hair. Well, we got this horse farm. So and we're just so excited because we didn't even really know about that part of the county that with the horses. And so we got the horse farm and you come in with, oh my gosh, that is great. And you make them feel smart and right. And you give them ask with curiosity, how's it working out? And then you follow up with sending a beautiful card in the mail with horses on the front, looking all Asheville like. And then you just start to work them into your past client follow up. And then you mark the anniversary of when they bought that property and send them an annual homeowner report with market stats and a call to action. Hey, if you want to get an updated market value on your property, let me know. You all see where I'm going with that, right? Now, what would most of us do if we're doing those calls and we hear that they already bought or sold? What's our first reaction? The Cindy reaction in the chat, right? Yeah. And then we usually tend to, do we praise ourselves or do we get self-critical? Dag nabbit, if I had just done my follow-up, if I had just followed my schedule, I would have had that deal and that would have been. Stop it. Unless you have a time machine and you're a TARDIS or something where you can go back in time and do it, there's no changing it. So get over that and pull the silver lining out of that bad news and see if you can retain them as someone in your database. Because guess what? You need a huge database full of people that own property in your market. Okay. Now you know the phone number works. It's a real person and they own a property. And get over it and keep moving on. Okay. All right. So let's jump back into the slides. Any questions around that? Okay. All right. So we're going to look at where your business stands. And here's the cool news, guys. You're getting this workbook and you're getting this information. So we're going to go through them quickly. You're going to do your math after the class. If we have some time left at the end, we can do them together. But this is just a business snapshot. I remember for decades, I did a very long writing a little essay answer style to about 10 questions on a mid-year review. And was it insightful? Yes. Did I have personal growth from it? Absolutely. Do most people in today's market want to do those things? I have found no, they don't. So I simplified this down to what is absolutely most critical.
Jeff. Hello, Mark.
And so you want to look at right now, how many closed sides do you have? How many pending sides do you have that will close this year? I know some of you do new construction. Don't count the ones for 2027. How many active residential resale listings? How many hot seller leads? Do not delude yourself. How many hot buyer leads? Do not delude yourself. You're your end goal. And you take the total of that, subtract it, you've got your gap, and then how many working weeks do you have left? And really be honest with that too. One of the big ones that catches people off guard is Thanksgiving week. If you have said to yourself, I'm always going to work Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday morning of Thanksgiving week, and the last 3 years you have not, then just count it as off. Okay. And if you happen to work, it's a bonus, right? And I know some of you do because you do a lot of the pie giveaways and stuff. But just my point is be real. Let's go back to Thanksgiving. If you keep saying you're going to work on Black Friday and you never work Black Friday, mark it as a day off. Okay. Just be real with yourself. But look at how many working weeks you have left. And if you really want to get into the nitty gritty, count the days. Okay. And then this gives you the gap calculator. You have your year-end goal. You're going to subtract the closed and pending sides. You're going to take that. You've got your gap. So if you're off, you multiply that by 10 because we know that we need to identify 10 side leads per closing. It gives you your side leads needed. And then figure out how many working weeks are left. And then you know your weekly lead number. Is there anyone on the call that very proactively engages with how many leads they identify every week and has their future client binder and actually keeps track of how many side leads they identify every week? Who on here, let me be cheesy class host for a minute. Who on here wants the last half of the year to be better than the first half of the year?
Me.
If you did, and I'm not even exaggerating, if you did nothing else we talk about today than this, your chances of hitting your goal would be higher than anything else you could do. Does anyone want me to use an example just to run through it once? I know a lot of you have heard it before. Quick vote, yes or no in the chat, or unmute and say yes or no. Yes. Okay. Jasmine, that was a yes. Okay. So let me grab my calculator. It's so funny because you guys that coach with me, you know the look. They know exactly when I'm grabbing the calculator. Apparently I have I'm grabbing my calculator look. So let's just say that somebody wanted to close 36 sales this year. That sound good? Okay. And we know that they currently have, I'll say 14 closed and 3 pending. So that puts them at 17. Okay. That means there are 19 more closings they would like to have in 2026. So we've got 19. You take 19 and multiply it by 10. That's 190. And then you figure out how many weeks are you going to work. I usually know this right off the top of my head. We just are about to finish week 25. So it's around 27 weeks left in the year. But you've got to get realistic about, do you work between Christmas and New Year's? Are you a human or a robot? You're probably going to have some personal days or some things happen with family. Do you do an ultra long weekend like Thursday through Tuesday for Labor Day? Is there a big family wedding in Spain coming up? That's a real example, right? So you want to actually count the weeks that you're going to work. So let's use that example and say out of the 27, you think that you're going to be fully off about 3.5 weeks. We would round up and make that 4 because you're a human and not a robot, right? So we'd take 4 weeks off. That takes us from 27 down to 23. Then think about, are you going to any training events? Lop off another week for that. So that would be 22. And then so you're going to work 22 more weeks of the year. And that's pretty safe. Factored in your vacations and your holidays. Then you factor in, what is your contract to close? So for most of you in here that I see and know your markets, I don't see any New Yorkers in New York City. Pipe up if you're here, or Chicago. That one, it gets dicey sometimes. But most of you are in about a 35-day market. So we're going to lop off 4 weeks because you want them to close before the end of the year. So that would take us to 18 weeks, correct? So if you really want to knock this out of the park, you would take 190 divided by 22. The number is 8.6. Believe it or not, consistency is more important than the number itself. You could decide if you want to round up or down. I kind of like the number 8, so I'd probably even recommend going to 8 for that. And your goal every single work week for the rest of this year through to Thanksgiving, because you want time to close them, right, is to identify 8 side leads every week. Can you go to the next slide? Because I think we break down what does that mean. Okay. So before I even get into I'll tell you this and then tell me if you have questions. A side lead is a buyer who says they want to buy in 2026, a seller who wants to sell in 2026. One person can count as 2 sides if they're going to sell and buy. If they want to sell their investment condo downtown plus their primary and buy That could be 3, right? So it's not the number of people, it's the number of sides. And the source doesn't matter. While we're on this call, Deborah, your best friend could send you a text. Hey, I'm going to sell the townhouse and I'm going to get a single level rancher walking distance to the cute little downtown, right? Even though it's your best friend, 2 sides right there. Or it could be an internet lead. With the internet leads, I would say you've got to confirm they're real to your comfort level, right? You still might find on further investigation they're not, but if you have two-way communication, you run them through Forewarn or you Google them and it appears like, okay, good. And that's one time, Katie, where that little bit of investigation is worth the time. So do that. But the source doesn't matter. It can be a referral. Source doesn't matter. Hitting 8 is what matters. Any questions on that? So a couple of fine points. Every week starts at 0. If you have a great week, I did a big open house and I went to a networking event Thursday night with the chamber and I have 16 new leads. Let me fill in next week's form. No. That just means you had a really great score for that week and you had 16 in 1 week. Monday, you start at 0, you find 8 more. This one thing has transformed people's lives. I'm not even going to say business. When I look back on people that I've coached that have made the jump over $1 million in GCI, this is nearly always one of the 2 key things that make it happen are this and focusing on listings. So if you have any desire to actually have change in your life, I would re-listen to this section of this call. And if you have any question whatsoever, you let me know. We do, Kat, I believe we have a video that gives more details on how to do this with the binder and everything, right? And then the follow-up that you do. We're going to, bonus time. If you're listening to this recording, you could send an email and request it. This can be the game changer. Does anyone have questions on it? Betty Lou Bick, I see you have a question. Yes. What if I don't think they're able to buy or sell? It doesn't matter. Ability to perform doesn't matter. You're turning your brain into a lead attracting and identifying machine. You want all of the leads, and then you trust that your lead follow-up system is so strong and your pre-qualifying system is so strong, the cream will rise to the top. And remember, we factored in a 1 out of 10 conversion ratio. So a lot of those people are not going to perform in 2026. But guess when a lot of them will perform, as long as you have good lead follow-up?
2027.
2027, 2028. We even talked about that 36-month gestation period, 2029, right? So if you're going to still be in the business, you want them in the, they're still valuable, okay? And the other thing is this can give structure to your week during a time where it's hard to have structure. Who gets summer distractions? Am I the only one? I was already fantasizing this weekend about taking my all-wheel drive Mini Cooper to Flagstaff this weekend and going off-roading, right? So you can get distracted in summertime. If you just tell yourself your work week is not over until you hit your number, do you think it will have you focus on lead generation? Yes. Do you think you'll be figuring out who else could I call? How else could I ask that vendor? Is there any other opportunity around this listing? Like it's going to, if you allow it, it will stimulate your subconscious to work on your behalf to keep a focus on lead generation because you'll become consumed with hitting your lead number more so than anything else that would take you away from it. Okay. So if there's no questions on that, we'll keep going. The listing push. Okay. I'm going to preface this part with Amber could not be with us in person today, but her business has undergone a huge resurgence and it is even in the face of having some turnover with staff and some turnover with some agents on the team. And so it's not like life was roses and daisies and she's selling more houses. Things have been hard and she's selling more houses. She is obsessed with, she schedules 5 listing appointments a week. She goes on 4 and she takes 3 listings. When we start every coaching call, I say, did you hit the 5, 4, 3? And it's either yes or no. What could those numbers be for you? And those are high numbers. She didn't start there. She didn't start at 5, right? She didn't go couch to 5K like I'm only going on 2 listing appointments a month. Let me jump to 5. Now you could do that, right? Any of you could do that, but she built up to it. So what if between now and Labor Day, you challenged yourself that every week that you work, you schedule 3 listing appointments, you go on at least 2, and you get 1 signed. And I do want a few of you to unmute. I do want a little bit of interactivity during this particular discussion. And I want you to be honest. If even that feels like that would be too much, feel free to say it. Here, I'll sound like COVID time. This is a safe environment. Okay. Bill?
Well, I'm scared, coach.
You're scared?
I'm scared that in my market, and this might be me, in this market, that if I get a listing, it will not sell.
That's valid. Anyone else having that feeling? Okay. What other thoughts? Debbie, do you have a thought?
No, actually, I do have quite a few listing opportunities coming up. And I'm a little different than Bill. I'm like, if I get it, I know I can sell it because I know how to price it. My last listing that I took, we had 5 offers within the first 3 days. We didn't go over ask, but we did get full ask with no concessions. So it's like in my mind, I know the strategy, I know the comps, I know all of that. It's just my thing is getting in front of enough people to get the listings
Right.
and following up with
Yeah.
my leads and all of, I mean, I'd be a millionaire if I did what I needed to do and what you're talking about.
So what do you think about, like, what could those numbers be for you? Could you schedule 3, go on 2, and list 1?
Yes, if I did that, absolutely, that would happen.
Would you be willing to take that on as a challenge between now and Labor Day and just really treat it like an experiment and see what happens?
Yeah.
What's some other feedback? Which, by the way, thank both of you, because those are both very valid thoughts and responses. Bill, let me pick on you for a minute. I get it that you have that subconscious, like, ooh, do I want to be sitting on 21 listings because I believe I could take them, but they're not going to sell? Do you still feel you could set 3 numbers for yourself? Could you have a 3-2-1 or a 5-4-3, or could you do it? It's just that you're
Yeah,
not
I
sure that
could
you want
do
the inventory.
I could do these numbers. In fact, I was sitting there going, 543, that's very doable for me.
Mhm.
Okay.
I thought so too.
And not, because I'm narcissistic. I have no problem closing and getting
Right.
the listing. That's not the problem. My problem is our market is so jacked up here that the mass majority of these houses are underwater. And like right now, I have 3 listings that they want to list as rentals because they can't, and so the moral of that story is when you call me and go, "Hey, I want you to list my house," I'm sitting there going, "Son of a gun." And it's not a pricing issue. I'll tell you what your price needs to be. That's not a problem. Problem is and again, I'm in an odd area, folks. So I'm not,
Yeah, it's not that odd.
but
The short sales are back. Let's just say,
well, I got to,
back short sales.
and so, I got a short sale right now. I've dealt with some short sales. So the moral of that story is when you call and go, I want you to list my house. I'm sitting there going, do I want to take that list?
So let's all collectively, if a few more of you could unmute, what is your first response when you hear that? Should Bill take the listing?
Yes.
Who else thinks yes? Give me some chats or reactions or thumbs up.
I would say it just depends. I mean, if the seller is, understanding the market and Bill agrees on the price with them, yes. But if they're like really far off, or like this listing that I just took, I had to have a realistic conversation with them about what their equity was and what they could expect to get out of it. And if they were trying to cut their monthly payment, was this really the best decision for them? So we did have to have a hard look at what their equity was and what I thought they could
Right.
get out of it.
So I'm gonna, and all those are valid. I'm gonna leap to, and no one's gonna be surprised. Yes, if you have a homeowner that says, "I need or want to sell my property," and it's the right thing for them. I understand what you're saying, Debbie. If they're gonna put themselves in a situation by losing the golden handcuff of their mortgage rate, and they won't be able to afford where they're gonna move to, like that's a comment. So I'm talking about if you're confident it's a sound decision for them to sell, even if they may have to bring money to the table, or even if they may have to pursue a short sale. I would say secure that listing. And Rhonda, I think you piped in there and said, yes, get it. And part of it is because that's why we're doing a group call in the next 2 weeks on how much does it cost you to take a listing, because I want you to make solid business decisions. So
So
we're going
that,
to do that so you will know if I take these 12 listings, this is going to cost me X. I can anticipate this many will sell and I will still have a profit margin of X, right? So we're going to get into the math. But the other thing Debbie mentioned that is really important is the shoot, I just lost it. Dagnabbit. So we're going to make sure it's right for them. We're going to make sure it's the right move overall and that they're going to be able to make that move that they believe. But the reality is we don't really know which homes are going to sell. If I hear it over and over. I'm really worried about this listing. We're going to launch, but my concerns are X, Y, and Z, and there's this in the yard and blah, blah, blah. The next week, or even before the next week, I get a text. We got 3 offers. It's under contract. It's perfect terms. Yeah, this and that. Then another listing, same agent. I'm listing this place. It's going to be a slam dunk. I better have a valet to help with the brokers coming to the broker preview, right? And it's cricket town. So we don't know which ones are going to sell. We also don't know when that one little shift in the wind is going to through things. Either way, by the way, either way, I'm not saying what the shift in the wind would be, but just imagine that interest rates drop to 5.96 and you're sitting on 21 listings. Who's having a big payday? You, correct? So let's talk a little bit about this. And Debbie, I do remember part of what I was going to say. You brought up the equity situation. And if you noticed, that was the one answer in that little poll that no one picked. And if you also notice, it's number one on the seller opportunities. So we and Katie get excited because I'm going to say this is some Bridget approved investigating. Yay. If you can identify your past clients and your orphan past clients that are sitting on equity first and then second, and then third, going through your sphere of influence and your VIPs and your friends, even the ones that you were not their agent, and you figure out who's sitting on equity. If you do those three things first and you send them an unsolicited CMA on their property, and you send them information about how to minimize capital gains in your state, and you send them information about the upcoming rising silver tide of, transfer and what's their end of life plan or trust options or will options. You don't think you're going to identify some people that are thinking about selling that actually have equity? As far as you know, there can always be like second notes or third notes that we don't know about when we first do our research, right? And how much more likely are they to be able to be in a position to do something and not be a prisoner to the golden handcuffs of the interest rate? Yes? No? Maybe? No one is sitting there going like, maybe. No, I'm telling you, this is the thought I had around this is, again, jumping back to the summer. What if one per day, you pick one past client per day? I would start with, you guys know I love luxury. I'd pull up all of your past sales. I would sort by price. I'd start with the higher price points first and just one per day. I would do an unsolicited CMA, get it in the mail, send it by email, and make it beautiful. Sarah Gabriel did those beautiful manila envelopes. If you have a color in your branding, get that color manila envelope so it's a little bit of an event when they open it, and start sending the unsolicited CMAs. Send one per day to past clients, especially the ones with equity. If they don't have equity that you know of, still send it if it is an above average sales price property. If you have to do a rule of thumb, usually the higher the price point, the more financial options people tend to have. Not always. If they get in distress, it's a different situation. But my point is, don't not send it because you think it's news they might not want to hear. You may be a little more vague. You might do market stats instead of a CMA, right? But I think there's a big opportunity there, and I'm not sure you guys are seeing it. As someone has to unmute and say you understand what I'm saying. Otherwise, I'll feel like I'm not getting the message across.
Can you give us some examples on what we could do if their home has not appreciated dramatically? Like what could that look like? Because that's
you could move to Hogwarts and discover that you're a muggle that has half wizarding powers, and you could do some wizardry. There's nothing to do. So here's the thing. You're the messenger of the market, and the market is a snapshot of today, and that is the reality of their house today. Now, like I said, you could do market stats and be vague on pricing. If you know that they think that it's worth $4.5 million and everything you've run is 2.9 tops, don't send that. Don't send, hey, here's a bunch of bad news and a pretty envelope with a ribbon. Don't do that, but just share what the market is doing right now. Okay. But for someone say to me, because I'm going to ask you guys, some of you have known me a long time. If past clients with equity is number one right here, and it was the top choice in that poll, do I think there's a huge opportunity there? Is there anyone out there? I'm going to start saying Pink Floyd. Hello, is there anybody in there? Just nod if you can hear me. Seriously, guys, someone has to speak for the group. Here's my concern. This is huge. And because you guys are not interacting with me, I feel like I'm not describing it right. So someone has to unmute and or go in the chat and say, we understand you. What you're saying makes sense. Or someone needs to say, I'm really not getting what you're saying, so that I can answer it. Because it's a huge opportunity and I don't want you all to miss out.
Okay, I'm really not getting what you're saying.
Okay. You have past clients from 2015 to 2020. That bought their homes. As long as they didn't do ridiculous refinancing, are they probably sitting on equity?
yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Sorry,
So,
yes.
yes, right? Focus on them. So send them. Okay, so I'll give one adaptation. pull up all your past clients and sort by the date of closing and start with the people that closed longest ago. They probably have equity unless they went through like a divorce or some weird refinancing thing or a big, someone lost their job. So they got a HELOC and they maxed it out. For the most part, they probably have equity. So what if you did? So pull up all your past clients, sort by when they closed, and start with everyone. If you started in 2015, your oldest clients, send them an unsolicited CMA, one per day between now and Labor Day, and give them some special attention because the past clients that purchased in 2015 have equity in their house.
What if you don't have clients going back that far?
It doesn't matter. The time doesn't matter. If you started in 2021, doesn't matter.
Okay.
Just call them.
Okay.
But I feel like it. So what I was going to say is the first three ones to start with are your past clients, your orphan past clients, and the people that you know really well, your top 20 VIPs. And then start looking at things like your neighborhood or a neighborhood around one of your great last sales, Jennifer Harmon, I'm thinking about Lakeshore, and find the people that purchased between 2015 and 2019. You might not do anything with them, but you might start trying to develop a relationship there, especially if it's around a sale or if it's where you live. But I'm trying to show you guys that here's the reality. A lot of people that bought in 2021, they don't have enough equity to sell. So one other quick note on this, and I want to keep going because I want to make sure we cover stuff and I want to honor time, but I can tell we're going over a little bit and I want to cover a couple of big things. So look for past clients with equity, orphan past clients, anyone that might have equity, and focus your time and energy there so that when you do take those 12 listings, Bill, you have a higher likelihood of them selling and the seller being able to sell directly themselves rather than having to go to a short sale option or some type of negotiation with a third party to make it happen. Okay. Or bringing cash to the table. But so I'm just going to ask again, okay, does it make more sense now?
Yes.
Okay. My question of commitment here is for those of you looking to have a big end of year, who likes the idea of doing one unsolicited CMA, starting with your past clients every day between now and Labor Day? I need to know if you think that sounds like a waste of time or that sounds really intriguing or. Okay. Bill says yes. Rhonda says yes.
Yes.
Debbie says yes. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and you see these other ones here, but keep going. Okay, this is an activity you can do when we're done. Put on Steely Dan, grab a legal pad, cup of coffee, turn your phone on Do Not Disturb, set a timer for 30 minutes, and make yourself write the top 20 most likely sellers that you know. And I challenge you to attempt to do it from top of mind first. If you really feel like you can't think of anyone, then go in your CRM, go in your social media, and get 20 seller opportunity that you believe are in front of you. If you can't hit 20, you see here referral partner, call your vendors. Hey, you know what, Bill? First off, let me thank you for that rush job you did on the termites last week. Really saved the closing. We were able to close on time. I was calling real quick. I just was reviewing my next 20 seller leads and I am short a few. And so I was just calling you right now because I know you want to have a really strong end of year and I do too. And I want to send you more termite inspections. Who do you know specifically that may want to sell their property this year? Okay, so just do whatever you can do to get 20 names down and then rate them. Put a star beside 5, call them in the next 48 hours. I have a fantasy land in my head that everyone that's on here today will actually do that this afternoon or tomorrow morning. And that next week, I'll get some text messages from you guys like, guess what? Out of the 20 names I wrote down, I already scheduled an appointment with 2. Okay. If you notice that last thing said 2027 seller, why did I pop that on there? What do people do?
Speed up their timeline?
Speed up their timeline. Yes. So this is a perfect week right now, right before 4th of July, to call everyone in your database that is labeled as a 2027 seller. Y'all get that, right? So in addition to your top 20, also be calling all of your 2027 sellers. I would also be sending them materials about the market. In it, you want to make sure that they know that you remember their plan. So you would say, hey, Jennifer, I know you're not planning to sell until 2027. I just feel that it's so important as a seller that you go into it confident in what's happening with the market. I sent you an email last night with some current market stats. Let me know if you have any questions. Stay in touch. You do not have to raise your hand, but is there anyone here on this call that lost out on a sale or a listing because even though you were following up and even though you were touching them, that you just missed that one little window and then whoops, fell into someone else's lap. I will also say if anyone is sitting here thinking, did she really just give an example of specifically applied to me? It's happened to more than one of you. So you don't need to raise your hands, but I also don't want anyone feeling like you were plucked out because that's a story that is happening right now. So Make sure that you get in touch with your 2027 sellers. I would also recommend that they are getting a phone call or a significant touch every month between now and the end of the year. Otherwise, there's no guarantee on anything, even if they've signed. That's the other thing. Many of you have had people sign the listing agreement. We need a little more time. Can't do it yet. We're gonna paint. My uncle is staying in the house and then all of a sudden it's the end of the listing period and they don't relist and they never go on the market. So you don't know what's happening. It could go either way. Stay in touch with those 2027 sellers. All right, go Cat. I do understand if you have to jump off, but if you can stay on, please stay on. Here are just some little seller nuggets. So some conversation starters. What do you think your home is worth today? Why not ask them? If you ask them, what are they likely to say back to you?
Well, maybe you tell me. You're the
Yes.
professional.
That's right. I'm really not sure. I saw some things online, but what do you think? Right. So it's almost like a way of asking permission, but it's making it more engaging than you calling up and just saying, like, hi, Jennifer, I'm calling you today because I figured out that your house is worth $3 million. Like, this is different. It's interactive, right? It's a conversation. In terms of timing, if someone is vague on timing, you could say, well, Debbie, I know that you guys don't really have it set yet for your plan. I'm just curious, do you still see yourself in this home 12 months from now? June 2027? You think you're still living here? Right? Life change. So this is one, if someone answers and it's just a regular touch call and you don't want to be salesy, you can just say, like, man, I can't believe it. You bought the house in 2013. I just was thinking about all the changes that happened in your life since then. And bring it up and ask them, what stands out to you in terms of what's changed? So that's going to bring up some life change stuff. What it helps see what buyers are responding to right now. If they have questions around the market, like, is anyone buying? I heard no one's buying because of interest rates, so that's just another angle to talk to a seller. Would you like to see what buyers are buying? Also start to get a little bit dramatic. So if people are like, I heard no one is buying, start saying things like, well, I tracked the market data and there were sales and offers accepted last week. In fact, let me double check. Yeah, 31 homes went under contract last week. So I don't know where you heard that from, but it's not true. Yeah, so that's where that market expert comes into play. And a fall market, if someone is not certain about, like, is this a good time to sell or summer, third quarter, whatever, if it moved before the end of the year matters, we should start now. And of course, you're always going to say that with a downswing. And by the way, I'm looking at nearly all of your markets, and that is a true statement because starting could be preparing the property or getting on the market now because days on market have gone to 90 days or 58 days, right? So if somebody wants to move before the end of this year, you better be talking to them now. That would include make sure that you are connecting with anyone who said they want to sell this fall because they probably have to start earlier than they expect. Okay. All right, let's go. Anyone like those? Good. Okay. I'm going to run through these quickly because I just want to make sure there's nothing I want to highlight, and then we will wrap up for Q&A. If you can stay on, great. So better seller conversations. Let's go. Sellers need to know that buyer behavior has changed, that condition matters at a very high level. We're in a weird place, and this isn't all price points. If you've got an average house and you're like, oh, it's not worth doing stuff, you got to rethink that. Condition is critical, and online presentation matters before the showing, and price must create attention. And your role as the agent is to use data without apology. Cindy, that's what I was talking about. Like, you are the messenger of the market. You're not the creator of the market. And you are going to be the one that is going to give them the information they need so they can make a strong decision for themselves. You are going to tell them the truth early and often. You're going to give options and share with them the consequences or the ripple effects of the different options. And you're going to protect the sellers from wishful pricing. In fact, you might even use a phrase like that when you're talking to them. You might be like, Allison, I'm just going to tell you, you know what a lot of my clients love? They've shared this with me after closing. They actually love that I protected them from their own wishful thinking and their own fantasies. And I hate, sometimes, I hate it because I feel like I'm crushing dreams, but what you can be sure of, I am not going to be afraid to let you know when you are having wishful thinking, right? So think about that. You may even use that in your closing or in your language with people. Okay, go. Listings. Okay, can everyone promise they'll listen to this clearly? Photo order has changed. I am looking at all of you that have sold for more than 10 years. Back in the day and up until recently, the photo order was what? Come on, people.
The front of the house.
Was the front of the house, and then
walking through it.
The front door, then the foyer hallway, and you walked through like you were walking through the house. That is what you do now if you want a stale listing with low engagement online and probably less showings. Okay. That is old thinking. You need to shift your brain into it is much more like online dating now. So you have to stop the scroll. You've got to slow the scroll. So your first 8 photos have to be the best of the best of the best features of that house. One great exterior. If there's an unbelievable resort backyard, even the backyard would be like photo 6, incredible kitchen, a close up of the fireplace. Katie, if you're still in here, you're so good at this. Get a couple of architectural interest photos. No one needs a photo of a boring hallway. Okay. Don't, so like there is we have to move away from that. And so many agents are resisting it. Do not resist. So if you want to play around with what I'm talking about, go on Zillow or homes.com today and pull up some listings in your area and look at them. If you don't capture the attention in the first 5 photos, the average consumer is going to keep going to next, and they're not going to read the description, and you've got to capture their attention. And having 3 exterior shots and then a floor plan and then a picture of a hallway and a front door, is that usually going to be enough to get someone to slow the?
No.
It is not. Okay. So I want everyone to promise me that you will embrace the new reality that this is like dating, so that you've got to give the personality and the features. By the way, after the first 6 to 8 photos, then you can go a little bit more in that more traditional order of here's the kitchen, here's the dining, here's the family room, here's the primary bedroom, here's the secondary bedroom, here's so you can, but you've got to prioritize. Those first photos have got to capture the strongest and best elements of that house. Okay. The rest of this you can look at later. Evidence of success marketing is pretty significant. Oh, Jennifer, did you have something
Yeah,
to add?
I was going to ask one question. Do you have
Yes.
a preference for where the floor plan photo should be within the carousel?
I do think and floor plans, by the way, I will go so far as to say if someone told me I could only have one, I could have a floor plan or I could have a Matterport, I would actually choose the floor plan. For some reason, floor plans are having a resurgence. I think that it could be early. It could be 7 or 8, especially if it's a great floor plan, or if you're in a subdivision and it's like the drum point that sold the most. So the more important the floor plan, the earlier in the photo rotation. But I do feel like a lot of times we give up some of that prime real estate for an incredible picture of the like family room kitchen with the fireplace. We give that up for the sake of the floor plan. And I feel like it could be just a little bit further back in the
Okay.
photos.
Nope, that helps.
Okay. Okay, keep going. Keep going. So getting offers accepted. So if you're working with buyers yourself, obviously listen for yourself. But I really want to talk to anyone that has buyer's agents that are working for them. Please help them. Let's talk about consumers for a minute. When things are easy and when things are usually a seller's market, data to the buyer is not as important. And they don't really want data. They want it's emotional, it's urgent, it's pressing, I want this house and I want it right now. What do I need to put on there that will help me get it? How many of you wrote offers during COVID where your clients did no inspection as is and did not have an appraisal contingency? How many of you did that? I did, right? Is that anything we would do in a normal day? Usually we'd be horrified, right? Usually it's like the opposite of what we would recommend, right? So that's what happens when it's a frenzy. Anytime we're transitional, people love data. So make sure that you're talking to, or if you're working with buyers, you really have to get comfortable with original list price to sales price ratio. You have to get used to that, not just for the neighborhood and the comps, but also for the listing agent. You want to be able to have a conversation with your buyer that is like, here's what we're going to do when you select a home and you really want to present a sound offer that is going to make you feel confident in the value that we're offering. A, I'm going to run a CMA as if I was listing the house, and I'll share that with you. B, I'm going to run the original list price to sales price ratio, not just on the neighborhood, but on the listing agent. And we're going to see if we can identify that listing agent strategy. Then we'll know how to write an offer that may be appealing to that listing agent. C, right. We're going to make sure that the payment works before we even identify your price range, right? So just get lean in on data during times of transition. And then frankly, and I know I'm talking into some broad strokes, but also when it's a buyer's market or it's skewing more towards buyers, that is also when data is really critical, both for sellers and buyers. So consumers, if you walked in during the peak COVID time and you started talking about data and buyer behavior, people would have been like, what are you talking about? How much can I get for my house? And where do I sign? And do you think you could get more? But now data is important. So you want to make sure that you're setting clear expectations. I want to spend just one more moment on the power of that original list price to sales price ratio and why you look at it for the comps and the listing agent. Have any of you had serious buyers? They're motivated. They actually want to buy and move, but they keep writing offers that are not good enough to be accepted. Anyone have that ever? I should see more hands up other than just mine. This is where you can address that. So in the buyer consultation, kind of picking up where I left off there. So Bill, here's what's great. When you do select the house you want to make the offer on, I'm going to do those 3 key points of analysis. And we're going to use that as our guide to where your offer price could be. Doesn't that sound great? And he's going to say, that sounds great. I want you making an offer price that's based in data and reality and not just picking a number out of the air, hoping it might work. Won't that be great? And he's going to say, yes, that would be great. And by the way, if he says, well, no, I don't want to go with data. I actually want to find one that's been on the market a long time and then offer this much less and then take 10% off that because they're going to how many of you would prefer to know if someone has that kind of nonsense in their brain before you show them 5 houses or 17 houses, right? Okay. So regardless of the answer, you're going to get really good information. And then you have a clear historical point to refer back to. So when they do pick a house, and let's just say that the house is listed for $695 and it's been on the market for 11 days and they come in with, we want to offer $620. And we were thinking $620 because my Uncle Tom in Ohio said this and that and blah. If you haven't had that conversation before where you can go like, hold on, Bill, hold on. By the way, I haven't done the math yet. So 620 might work mathematically, but remember back in the consultation, and I told you I would protect you and I would help guide you to make an offer that has a high chance of being accepted on a home that you love, right? And he's going to say, yeah. So I love that you've identified this property. Let me run the numbers and get back to you. But I want to offer 620 because Tom in Ohio said, we're going to factor that in. Okay, but let me run the numbers first. Right. So you're giving yourself, this is one of those, your future self will thank you for what you did during that consultation. Even if they still fight you and they still make ridiculous offers, you're giving yourself a higher chance of, okay, great. It's at 695 in that neighborhood. Believe it or not, the homes are selling for 89% of list price, original list price. I thought it was going to be a little higher. So that's actually good news for you with wanting to get a bargain. Now here with the listing agent, it usually sells at, even better news, 85. So typically they are a little bit high on list and they come down. So when I run that math, figure it out, guys. What is 85% of the list price and what's 89% of the list price? I think your offer should be somewhere between 637 and 649. I didn't do the math, but you get what I'm saying, and give them a range to choose from. What are most people going to do if you offer them 2 choices?
Buyer's going to go with the lowest one.
That's right, but they're going to pick one. Right? They're either going to pick one of the things you said or given, well, I like going in the middle. So what if, do you think they would take 642? Okay. But you're shifting the conversation. Now you are, and it's based in data. It's not based in Uncle Tom in Ohio said this about a house in Southern California. And then, the work they want to do on the house when they buy it, which, so it's giving you a non-emotional actual data where they can make a strong offer. Let's be real for a second. Are you still going to have buyers that ask you to write crazy offers?
Yes.
Yes. And because you are in most states a fiduciary and you're working on their behalf, are you going to write the crazy offer? Yes. Right. And then we're going to go through, they have to lose a few before they write. We all know the story. I'm not saying there's 100% guarantee, but could you see how in this kind of market, how you're giving yourself a real tool based in real data where you may be able to make stronger offers straight out of the gate. Post-COVID, I already know every single person in this room, you know how to handle a hot property. That's why we're not talking about that. You do know how to handle if it's multiple offers and, you know that. So we don't need to talk about that. Start getting used to buyers that want to under offer and they're jeopardizing their opportunity of getting a great house for them. Make sure that you have these things discussed before it gets emotional. Okay. Any questions around that? All right. Next. Okay. Got a plan of action here. Next. strong offer. I'm going to say one little thing on a strong offer. You do want to call the listing agent, obviously, when you're making an offer. Please attempt to stay away from the ultra long shots. Like, don't call a listing agent. How many of you as listing agents have received the, hey, Bill, I'm so excited. I think my clients might write an offer on your property. And then cricket town, you never hear from them again and they don't answer the phone, right? So make sure that when you're calling the listing agent, pride yourself on calling it when it is meaningful enough that you think it is real. Do not wait till you've already written it, because you could lose the property, right? So you've got that's a little dance to do. Make sure the listing agent know that you have an interested party. Maybe don't go so far as to say that you have a thing. The other thing I would say with listing agents, if you call a listing agent, they answer the phone and you can tell right away that they're a high D. They don't like chit chat. They're not going to give up anything. I am thinking about one person in a navy blue dress and a polo shirt dress in this Zoom room that I'm describing. So buyer agents called me and they were like, do you think the sellers would? I would say my sellers will give serious consideration to all written offers. When can I expect to receive it? Well, I just wanted to ask first, which title company? Again, my sellers will give serious consideration to all written offers. When can I expect yours? Yeah, so they got nowhere with me. So if you come up against that, my point here is it if you hit a brick wall with a listing agent, you run the risk of lessening the chances for your client if you keep attempting to get them to discuss with you in a manner that they've made clear they will not do. So sometimes I had buyer's agents, especially in Southern California, that would just hound and hound and hound. And if they hounded, then when their offer finally came in, I was like, what is it going to be like getting through the transaction with them? So just be on alert, suss out the listing agent. Now, for the flip side, if you call a listing agent and they're chatty Cathy and they're a butterfly and they start telling you all kinds of stuff and like, well, the sellers told me to tell everyone that they love this and that, man, that, right? In fact, with that agent, you don't want to be too abrupt, right? You might be getting ready to go on an appointment. You're like, oh my God, this person is talking too much, but you don't want to cut them off, right? So just what I'm saying, have some sensitivity around what you know about the listing agents, their personality, how they do business, and then talk to them in an according manner. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And so you guys can look at this, keep going. Better conversations before the offer is written. And that, yeah. So I kind of mentioned that. Keep going. And we talked about this a little bit. I already told you about Lazarus Week. All of you, I think, have business percolating in your pipeline, in your database right now, not even in the pipeline. They're old and dead. They're marked as like never clicked on anything, never did anything. There's people in there that are going to do something, but you'll have this reminder. And the reactivation script, we went through that. You can make it sound like you too. These are not carved in stone. It's not the 10 commandments coming down the mountain. So I'm going to end on this thought. What would happen to your business if for the summer of 2026, you did the things we've already talked about? One unsolicited CMA a day, knowing the weeks that you're working, the weeks that you're off, or the days that you're off, knowing how many leads you need to identify each week to achieve the goal of closed deals in the year. What if you enhanced all of it by designating one day per week that is database lead generation day? And many of you know the activities each day of the week, and they're in the slides. So if you don't know it, you're going to get it in the slides. If you have questions, reach out because we have another recording about it as well. So what if you really committed to doing the database baseline activities? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. If you're going to be off half a week, do all of them in 2 days. But in addition to that, I'll simplify down what I'm saying. You looked at the next 8 weeks. It doesn't have to be the same day every week, but you picked one day per week where you're going to lead generate and be in the database 5 hours minimum. So you do like a power day. You do 2.5 hours in the morning with a break in the middle. Go for an hour and 10 minutes, take a 5-minute break. Hour and 10 minutes, 5-minute break. Then do 30 minutes of catching up with email, voicemail, returning calls. Have lunch delivered or bring it with you. Go outside for 10 minutes. Come back in, set the timer for an hour, go for an hour, 5-minute break. And then do another hour, 5-minute break. Like if you just did that one day per week for the next 8 weeks, in addition to the little things that we discussed and combined with it, because some of that would overlap, right? Literally, let's say you did it on mostly Wednesdays, but there's one weird week where you do it on Tuesday. What if part of your calls that day was calling everyone that you sent the unsolicited CMA to that you haven't talked to yet, right? So they can combine with each other. They can converge. Unmute yourself. Tell me what you think of that. One power lead generation communication database day every week, the next 8 weeks, in addition to all of the stuff that we discussed.
I think it's possible.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Jasmine. Anyone else?
Think I like it. Getting it all done in one day sounds, I think, a little more appealing than doing an hour a day. And
Yeah, that if we did it just committed to one day of doing it, we're probably going to be more apt to do it versus going, oh, I'm going to split it for 1 hour, over 5 days a week.
that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah. So I'm with you, Debbie. If I said, yeah, I commit to 5 hours in a day to do that, we're going to be more apt to do it.
And one other side note, it almost doesn't matter who you're calling that day. And by the way, when I say it, it's all the lead gen. But no, it's not. Hold on. It's all of the proactive lead gen. So it's not going on social media for the whole day making your own posts. 30 minutes of the day could be you commenting on other people's posts and then calling the people that had big news they shared, both good and bad, right? So don't delude yourself on that. Don't be like, I spent all day on Instagram and that's my 5 hours of lead generation. You are a unicorn if that's the case. And I don't believe that would be based in reality. But I like this. Is there anyone who does? Well, one of the things I'm going to add on to what Debbie and Bill said. Let's say you did start doing that every Tuesday and you get results from it. Guess what you want to do the rest of the days?
Lead gen.
Yeah. So it's a way to
database.
actually trick yourself into, because also if you do morning and afternoon, then the next day you're like, well, I could just do an hour right now. Let me set the timer and get my coffee. Okay. And you'll get on the phone, even if it's for an hour, because when you do 5 hours on one day, 1 hour feels so manageable. So this can be a real game changer. And I would spend on that power day, I'd spend a good 60 to 70% of the time in your database, in your Mets, and the old dead leads, all of that. And then if you do want to call some new people or new relationships, make that around 30, 40% of the time, because most of your business is actually already in front of you, right? So spend more of the time those averages are not pulled out of the air. They're based in big data. So who's on board to at least try that? And by the way, it's every week that you're working. So if you already know, like, I'm off the 3rd week in July, okay, you earned a vacation off. I'm not saying to do it while you're on vacation, but who is willing to do a power day once a week for the next 8 weeks? Oh, we got Bill.
I am.
Good. Jennifer is. Okay. And I will say this is not, again, it's not carved in stone. So if you're sitting there and you're considering it, but it feels too much and it feels like you may be setting yourself up to lose, we don't want that either.
Are you reading my mind?
So it could be 3 hours. It could be a block of 45 minutes and then a break, 45 minutes and a 5-minute break, half an hour for catching up with life, and then 45 minutes after lunch, right? So you can customize this. I will tell you all right now, the power is in the pattern and the power is in the timer. If there's anyone here who doesn't believe me, do a little bit of research on the Pomodoro effect. But if you allow yourself to lean into the pattern, as human beings, we don't even realize it. We are perpetually looking for patterns. We don't like limbo and we like to know what to expect. So the power of what I'm describing to you is setting a goal, setting a time frame, using a timer and honoring it. One of the only times you wouldn't honor that timer is if you were in the middle of a phone call and it's meaningful, right? Hear me clearly. If it's not meaningful, if someone is rattling to you, you're going to go, oh my goodness, I lost track of the time. I've got to go. My timer just went off to get me to get ready for my next appointment, which is true. You're not even lying. It's true. Your next appointment is your next 45-minute session of calls. So if it's not meaningful, you wrap it up and tell them you'll call them again, in the future. If it's meaningful and you're on your way to a lead or a need or an appointment, you stay in it and then still have your little time break and then restart your 45 minutes. The power is in the predictability and the pattern. Okay. It's less about the length of time. Okay. All right. I would like to wrap up by reiterating, if you want to sell more houses than you have sold so far this year, you have to talk to more people. I'm even going to oversimplify it more. If you would like to sell double of what you've sold so far this year, you probably need to talk to double the amount of people right now. By the way, that doesn't always hold true because your skills improve the more people you talk to more often. So the conversion rate eventually catches up with you. But if you want an immediate impact, so really look at it. And if you're like, that sounds fun, I do want to, let me analyze it. And you can do all of this if you track your numbers. If you're not tracking the number of contacts you make every day, please start. It is a way to give you power and leverage in the future. Okay. And then this is possible for all of you. We're in a tricky time. There are factors working against us. However, people are always going to be buying and selling homes. I have yet to have a client, and I actually called one out just this past week where they were like, nothing is moving. No one's buying any. I was like, is your MLS open or can you open it? And I made them open. I was like, all right, I think I said, put in the last 7 days, new pendings, and they open it up. And by the way, I will give them this. The number that came up was lower than I was expecting, but still, there was a number. I have not yet heard of a town in America where there's zero sales. If you're in it, please let me know. So this is possible for all of you. The people that play in the game and stay in the game are the ones that are going to win. I know that sounds like a cliche, but it's true. So if you show up, you follow your schedule, you have a schedule that's well thought out with strategy and a focus on income producing activity, followed by income maintaining activity. Marketing and admin comes after that. You are leveraged with a transaction coordinator. You are refining your skills and becoming that market area expert. You are showing up in a way of curiosity and genuine care for the people that you do interact with, not just your clients, but your colleagues. You're going to make it through this. So let's wrap up with some takeaways. Can some of you unmute and share what you're taking away? Actually, go ahead and answer this poll. So after this, what are you going to do first? And as you're answering the poll, if anyone would like to share your takeaways from our time together, you can start sharing that while people are answering the poll.
Well, I have 2 pages of notes. I can't wait to get all the stuff you're going to send us to look at this. I mean, again, your challenge of us to be 85 percenters, and what would that do to our lives and the lives of the people around us? I have, the coach knows I'm a Christian. Our sin affects other people. This activity is also going to affect other people, right? And so I kind of think about that. Which do I want? Do I want to be a negative force or a positive force in people's lives? And showing up at 85% is going to do what? So then you gave us the tools, right? Of, hey, send that CMA, send out that, or sit down with your database and freaking call them. I mean, he told us to touch them, 50 whatever times. Well, if we're doing that, then we are sitting down 5 hours a day and doing it. And so again, being the time Nazi, I love what you just also taught us is, hey, it's not an hour a day. It's like, I'm committed today to do this activity.
Yes. And it might take longer some days than others, and it might take less time some days than others, right? So I'm glad that you picked up on that. Who else has a takeaway? I know there's only a handful of us left because I know I ran over time. But anyone else find anything meaningful?
I found several things meaningful, but I think one thing that I really have to start doing, other than just getting out of my own way and making these phone calls and doing those things, is knowing my numbers and tracking that data.
Yes, I think it really helps you come from a place of confidence because you start dealing more with the reality of the market and what's happening, and it gives you a sense of confidence. You feel less tied to your mood or feelings. So it's a way of grounding. You like ground yourself, and when we feel grounded, we show up usually in a place that's more powerful and engaging. Well, this is cool. It looks like 2 of you from the group left are definitely going to do the database days. Yay. And there's really cool information in the slides about how you can continue to organize that. And as I mentioned, we do have a short recording that gives details on the Monday activity, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So if you want that, send a quick email in and Kat will send it to you. I plan on part of what I'm doing to help this summer is doing more calls like this. So we're going to jump in on a heavy numbers analysis. We're going to jump in on buy side. So we're going to dive deeper on some of these things. I am going to do a fresh version of how do you plan out your touches and automate as much of it as possible so that you can live life, go on vacation, and know that your business is still building, even if you don't have a big team or a big staff. So those things are coming. Please keep your eye out for them. I want to thank you guys for being here today. I do apologize. We went a little bit over. I hope that it was worthwhile. And I just I just know that each of you in your own way can go into the last half of this year and you can claim it. You can step into it and claim it, that this second half of 2026 is going to exceed what you had in mind before you came to this class today. Okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
Any final thoughts or questions? You can stay in. I can stay for a few minutes. If you feel complete, you can head on out. And I want to thank you guys for coming. And I hope that you will come to some of our other upcoming events. Okay. Debbie, so good to see you again.
So good to see you. Thank you so much.
And you look great.
Thank you.
Yeah. And grab a time. I'm going to
I'm
tell
going to.
Kat. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
I'm
And
going
we can
to.
reconnect.